All right, Jonah, we are back for another episode. This is the One of None podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Andrew Ganung.
I'm your other host, Dr. Jonah Casella.
And today is the start of our first series together, Jonah.
Mm-hmm.
We're calling this the Iron Mind series, and we'll get into why we're calling it that as the episode continues, but we're breaking it up into a couple parts. The first part being finding your why, and we'll also dive into why we are starting with this. But want to start out and say thank you, as per usual. Thank you for listening. Thank you for reposting us on social media, things like that. Just being an avid listener, we appreciate everything. We appreciate even if it's just one listener. So, want to say thanks again. And then, John, I don't know if you want to hop in, but I'm excited to get into this one today. So.
Yeah, me too. This is a really good one. This whole series is going to be awesome. We're hyped about this, just like everything else we talk about. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm just going to start off with my why. What is my reason for waking up every day? Just a blanket is just the term for this for me is that I just refuse to be average, and that I can look back to how I was raised, and that has a lot of influence from my father with this one. It was just raised that average or good enough is never enough. And growing up, and we're going to talk about what tough love is in another series. It's part of, or another part to this series. But definitely was raised with some tough love, and that I was always pushed to be better than just enough or just good enough. So for me, I just refuse to be average, and that goes beyond my physical endeavors, like with running and lifting, and that routine, and it goes into my work and how I feel about my patient care and how I treat people at work and the effort that I put into it. And it goes into my relationship, which is why I'm just hard on myself in general in all aspects of my life, because I just refuse to be average. And when I fall short, or when I am being average or even less than average, I take it very seriously, and I tend to dwell on it because of that. But that's my why. Andrew, do you want to get into what's your why?
Yeah, and even just to preface what I'm about to say too, um, the reason like we're really starting with the whole why is because if you're creating an iron mind, which is a callous mind, like Jonah has referenced a lot in the past, you're just trying to create a a non-negotiable mind where you create the life that you want to, whatever that looks like to you, whether it's generational wealth, whether it's just peace or financial independence or whatever it is. You're going to have to develop some type of mindset that gets you up every day and gets you moving, because generational wealth or financial independence does not come from passive sitting around doing nothing all day. You're going to have to still get out there. You're going to have to get after it and develop a really strong willpower and independence to be able to do these things. And so when we were drawing up ideas for what makes up an iron mind, we thought to ourselves, you have to have a why. And I have this conversation a lot with my staff, and even with my higher ups, I have these conversations with them as well. It's You have to have your why, or else you're not going to continue to push for whatever it is that you're seeking. And each why looks different to each person. My why looks really different than Jonah's, and I'll explain my why here in a second. Jonah came up from in a different upbringing than I did, and so his why is going to look vastly different than mine. And I think that it's really unique to have different whys, and why people tick in the first place and why they have the goals that they do. And I think that with that being said, you're going to have a strong why, or else you're not going to be able to pursue that consistently day in and day out, even whenever you're tired, even whenever you're really pissed off, even whenever you're very emotional about something. Whatever it is, they're not going to be every day a motivational day. You know, we talk about that with discipline, motivation versus discipline. Discipline is doing what you hate to do and acting like you love it. And that's sometimes what I resort to whenever I don't have a lot of motivation, which is the majority of my days. I fall back on my discipline and my why. And the discipline is developed because of my why.
Yeah.
And and I think Jonah's is a really awesome one because if you know Jonah on a personal level, you know that matches his why matches him very well. And I have had the privilege of meeting his family, so I know his dad's an awesome dude, but he's also, I can see the tough love that Jonah was raised with his dad. So it matches well for Jonah. And I think it's each person has a very unique one. And I think mine's probably a little bit different along the same lines, but I think if you go back to 2 episodes ago, or maybe it's three at this point, Jonah, where we talked about, our upbringing and, you know, escaping victimhood and how that's a very popular thing nowadays. And I talked about losing my mom and then also going through a health crisis myself. I feel like it was always after that I started to develop my why. And my why was I always just wanted to create a better life for myself, whether it looked like a healthy lifestyle, whether it was a financial independence lifestyle. And I've really had this mindset since probably college. And it was like a weird thing that I could never kind of put into words, that I always knew that I was going to create something. And it started and it kept building and building and building. And I think that your why is always going to be the same over the years, but it's going to look different year to year. And I know that my why that, I had back in maybe in college looks really different than what it does now. But I think it's along the lines of what Jonah is saying, which is we don't want to be average. And you want to create a lifestyle for yourself and for your future generations that's going to be long lasting. And that's my why. I grew up with a dad who, raised my sister and I for the most part, prior to marrying my stepmom. And I think that seeing the grit that he had, despite being an only parent and having only one sole income and raising two kids, to be strong in their faith, to work hard, to, remain strong in their morals and their ethics and things like that, that set a foundation for me to want to do the same and then double that. I want to have generational wealth. I want to have financial independence where my kids don't have to worry about anything growing up. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm raising them a certain way where they don't have to work for whatever it is, but I don't want that to be a worry because my dad, despite the circumstances, created that life for me where I didn't have to worry. And I think that's my why, Jonah. I think that's where it comes from, and it's gonna look different in a year. And I'm sure. I mean, dude,
Yeah.
talk about what was your why? Like you could probably think back to college. I think your why looks really different than it does now. You
Yeah. I
know?
mean, yeah. I mean, to an extent for sure. And looking back too, when you're talking about like your dad and how he kind of shaped that why, and that's kind of what I was referencing too, is that I don't want it to sound like a bad thing. I love the fact that my dad was tough on me and expected more from me, even though I was younger, and always expected more than average, and to be great at everything I did. And that means like even like you're cutting the grass and you're doing the trim work, don't half-ass anything you do because that leaks into everything else in your life. Which I have some other topics on that we'll get into on a different part of this series. But yeah, so my why in college was obviously different. I mean, and in my mind, I guess before I actually got into optometry school, and even maybe it would change more after I got out, but my why was just that I didn't want to struggle and I didn't want my family to struggle. Not that I did. I think my parents did a great job and did the best that they could, so that I wouldn't have to struggle and had the things I needed. But that was definitely my why, was that I'm going to work really hard and be better than average, because I know that's what it takes to get to a point where I don't have to struggle. So it's kind of like the underlying theme that we both share was there.
Yeah.
It's just now has molded into, I'm kind of at that point now where I have some of those things locked in, and now my why is, that blanket term for my why is bleeding into other aspects of my life a little bit differently than before. And I like how you were talking about your why kind of allows you to be disciplined even when you're not motivated. And that reminded me of when I did my run yesterday, and I was like mile 9 and of a 10-mile run that I had planned. And like I was running at a my heart rate was below my max aerobic heart rate, so I wasn't like going all out race speed or anything. But of course, like you're 9 miles in, you're gonna have some fatigue. And I just got to a point where I was like, I got a mile left. Like I'm just gonna give this like everything I have. And I was like 9.5 miles in. I'm like, I only got half a mile left. Like I'm kind of hurting right now, but like I love this. Like this is why I do this right here. And I remember just like being gassed and just smiling. And that smile like flipped the switch. And it's that little bit of discipline where like I'm not necessarily motivated anymore because I've been running for an hour and a half, but like my discipline and it just allowed me to get into a mental space where I could, hammer that last mile, mile and a half and enjoy it. And I have some other things to talk about with this too. And something I want to kind of, what I thought was a good example, and maybe it's not because I'm really good at just messing up examples in my head, but the monetary system, like paper bills, like dollar bills, were originally backed by gold. It was the gold standard. So everything was backed by gold. The bank had gold to back every dollar bill that was out there. In the 60s, when Richard Nixon was in, he nixed that. But at that time, that set the standard for what the dollar was. Your why is the gold, right? It sets the standard for everything that you do. So it backs you up when you question why you're trying so hard and want to quit. And without it, you will certainly fail. Just like our monetary system now is in shambles because it's not backed by anything. And so you have to have the gold, which is the why, um, in order to be able to push past adversity and stay on track with what you want to achieve in life.
That's a great. I didn't know you were bringing that heat to the pod today. Jeez.
I was like mid workout, came to my mind. I'm like, I gotta write this down.
Yeah, that's good, dude. I didn't even realize that you were thinking that way. But yeah, I mean, that's an awesome analogy right there. And I actually didn't even know that about that,
Yeah.
the goal being backed. That's pretty sweet. But yeah, I love that, dude. And I think that's like spot on, exactly what we're talking about. And your why will supersede everything. It will always supersede everything because, like, how many times are you waking up, throughout the week or the month or the year where you just don't want to do any, you don't want to get out of bed and you would rather just stay in bed. And I mean, work gets hard for all of us, as much you can love your job so much, but I think at some point, like, you do get tired. You'd rather just stay there and your motivation is low and you're laying there, but you realize that there's a bigger reason why you're doing it. And for some of you, maybe you haven't found your why yet, or your job and your passions and your career don't match your why. And that's like that's maybe something that you need to start addressing because you're not going to last very long, like I'm talking about, in that current state. Because you can only do that for so long until you just get tired and hate what you do or hate whatever you're doing, and I think with the working out for me, it started out as like I don't like the person that I saw myself as whenever I was going through treatment. And then I was like, I know I don't want to get back to that ever again. And that is like a crazy drive. That why gives you a why that nothing else can give you. You can have all the motivation in the world to get up and go to the gym, but day 365 of doing that and not taking a single day off, you're going to be burnt out and you're going to be tired and not want to do it. But if you have a deeper rationale as to why you're doing something, you're always going to be able to prevail and do that. And that's why I talk about this with my people at work because everyone's why looks so different. But in order to work towards a common goal, you have to you still have to reach out to the other people and find their whys so that they can push in the right direction. So like you and Aubrey's why looks different, but you have a common goal that you want to achieve, right? So
Absolutely.
that's something that you have to both address and you have to make it attractive in Aubrey's eyes, even though you don't have the same why as her,
Hmm.
and so being able to like coincide with your partner and have a similar goal but different whys is a tricky thing, because what makes Aubrey tick is going to be different than what makes you tick. And I think that goes for relationships, that goes for work, that goes for literally
Yeah.
anything, friendships
That's
too.
that's a great example. and how it ties into other parts of your life. And actually reminded me, and I didn't even think about this until right now. There was an episode, I don't know if it was just a clip from a podcast or something of Jocko's, but he talks about, and it's a clip of him at, it's like one of the warehouses that produces his supplements, or they ship everything out. So like these people are like, they're not making a ton of money. This isn't like a career that is like something they went to school for or anything like that. Not to degrade what they do, but he's basically like went around and he's like, why do you want this job? Like, why does this matter to you? And like went around to everybody's why. And he basically said exactly what you're saying now, is that if you don't have a why for doing what you're doing, then you're not going to care about it and you're going to do a shit job. And he doesn't want people to work there if they're not going to be happy. Like, go find your why somewhere else and do it. And it's something that I've thought about with, my work and my colleagues and stuff too, is like, I hope that they have a why, even, the people that might not fully enjoy what they do, or maybe they don't think it's a career job. I hope that they can find a why to motivate them to take care of the patients and the people that they work with too. So I think that was a great point you hit on right there.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I'm referring. I think I actually may have seen that video that Jocko put out, because I feel like he'll go around it, like he'll go and do that stuff sometimes. Jocko's a beast, dude. He's a bad dude.
He's the epitome of break in case of war, break glass in case of war.
Yeah,
sicko.
Exactly. And so I think our challenge to you this week is think about your why. Figure out what your why is. And you can think about it in terms of your relationships, with your career, with your health and fitness. This is a really important thing that you need to ponder on, because if you're in a career right now where you're not enjoying what you're doing and it doesn't coincide with your why, then you're not going to last in it. And I'm not trying to say that to tell you to get out of the career. Maybe you just haven't found a way to like introduce your why into your career, and some people can flip the switch. But I would challenge you to at least try and find that, because that's ultimately what's going to be the thing that prevails over time. And like Jonas said, you're going to do a crap job at whatever you're doing if you don't have your why and figure that out. And for the sake of your own happiness and for the sake of your success, you're going to have to figure it out, one way or another. And, I think that, in this current day and age, you see people, if we're going to stay on the topic of money for a brief moment, everyone is trying to do whatever it is to make money. They don't care what it is. They're going to go and be a wholesaler on Amazon, and they're going to drop ship stuff to you. And they're just going to buy mass amounts of one product, and they're going to resell it on Amazon and make money that way. Is that going to create temporary wealth? Absolutely. And they're probably doing a good job at it if you understand it. Is that going to create long-term happiness? Probably not. And so, yes, if you want to chase that, that's fine. But think about longevities. Are you going to enjoy doing that years to come? And I think about when I want to create a name for myself on this earth and in my community that is long lasting. And I want to build a culture around me that speaks volumes about who I am. And I am not going to do that by creating short-term wins on Amazon and make a crap load of money and then move on to something else. What makes me happy and what makes me want to create that name for myself is embedding myself into my career. And that's something that I feel very strongly about, and helping people and doing that over and over and over again. And that's what is going to create a name for myself. And I think about Andy Frisella said this. He said something along the lines of like, if you're doing this just to, I think early in his career, he wanted to just make a ton of money, and he was selling supplements at the time. And he said that he was just trying to push sales on people, and he didn't really care about the products. He didn't know what was even in them. He was just trying to create wealth for himself. And he said in the first 10 years of his business, he made $58,000. in the first 10 years. So he was not a wildly successful human being in the first 10 years. If you know this guy now, his net worth is probably 150 million. But he said the second that he changed his mantra to trying to do what's best for people and help his people, whether it's a customer or the people around him, when he started caring about how they did in their best interest, that's whenever he started making so much money. And I think about that in my own life too. And Jonah, you should do this as well. Think about the patient first, because the patient experience, which we already do that. I know you do that 100%. But when people come into the clinic late and they're an hour late, and like what we just talked about last pod, think about that. Think about the patient and the patient experience and caring about the patient first beyond your schedule. That patient's going to have the best experience with you. And that's what's going to get people to come back and continue to do business with you. So that's the way I think about it too, is like, that's finding your why. If your why is helping people, you are going to do so much better than if your why is, I want to make 100 grand by the end of the year. You have to figure out what your why is. Otherwise it's not going to last. And I like that analogy that Andy talked about, or not even an analogy. That was real life. Like he really did like make that, he put that into practice.
Yeah, 100%. Your why develops your passion, and your passion, although not at first, will ultimately lead you to success, whether that's financial or something else. Mm-hmm. That's why the why is so important. It's the foundation of the house, aka your life, that you're trying to build. And so without the why, without the passion, you're building your house in quicksand. It's not going to last. It's not going to work. You have no success that way.
That's a great point right there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And the other thing about, just generally about the series that we're talking about, this iron mindset, is, this is the first step, like we're saying, developing the why. Ultimately, the end goal of this is to develop this iron mindset where it makes things that maybe initially you thought were impossible possible. So for me, like running a marathon, and the people around me too, you're going to run a marathon. You've never even did a 10K. You've never even ran 6 miles, and you're telling me you're going to run a marathon in a few months. So it's like years of building that iron mindset and developing that the way that Andrew and I did was just like, yeah, like I know that it's going to suck and it's going to take a lot of work, but I know that this is something that like I'm going to be passionate about, and I know that I'm going to get it done, and it's going to be possible because of that iron mindset. And it allows you to choose, the hard right over the easy wrong too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, do you feel that way, Andrew? Like, I feel like in everything I do, just like you're saying with that patient, like a patient could come in 15 minutes late, 20 minutes late, and you could technically turn them away, right? Like, I don't have time now. Or you can do what's right, even though maybe it sets you back a little bit. And you see that patient and you treat them with respect, and you don't show them that maybe you're a little bit annoyed. And that's the passion that you want to, because you care so much about them. That's your why. So you do that for them. And just like what I was saying when I talked about running, and it was like the end of my run and I was really exhausted, but I put a smile on. Your iron mindset is what tells you to keep going and smile even when it sucks, even when you think you have nothing left, doing that extra rep. So yeah, keeps you on your A game at work, keeps you on your game and your relationship too, even after a long day, and makes you appreciate what you have. It gives perspective to your life too.
Yeah,
that's my spiel.
I definitely agree with that, Jonah. And I think I had to definitely say something, because you said something about when people are like, oh, you've only run 5 miles before, you've only run 6 miles before. How are you going to do a marathon? That's too much for you. You shouldn't do that. And I wrote down like that why will also always help you amidst those doubting times too. Because the idea that, I think everyone in your circle, your close circle, whether it's friends or family, they're always going to want what's best for you. But they might still have those comments where they say, I don't know if you should do that. I don't know if you should do that. I think that seems a little bit unrealistic. But if you truly know your why, then you're gonna be able to really stay true and dig your heels into whatever you're doing, despite the people saying that, whether it's, whether they mean harm by it or not. That's going to allow you to continue to stay strong in whatever you're doing. And I think about that a lot. A lot of my goals scare me, and I've talked to people in the past about my goals before and how monstrous they were, and I've had them say, "Well, just wait until you're just graduating. The idea of owning a practice one day seems so far fetched. You're going to have to at least learn how to lead people before you can even do that." Well, that's exactly what I'm doing now. Like if I had somebody tell me that and I listened to them, I would just be content. Like, they're right. I should just be a clinician, be a good clinician first, which is great. I'm still becoming a really great clinician. I'm still working at that every day, but I'm also leading people too, and I'm learning how to do it. And I'm doing it earlier in my career too. And if I had listened to those people, I'd still be just a clinician right now, which I knew I was capable of more. So when you have people say to you things like that, or throw, phrases at you that show doubt in their mind, that's going to kind of rock the ship a little bit. And you're going to feel like, I don't know, maybe they're right. And that's normal. But at the same time, if you truly know your why, then you're going to stick in it, and
Yeah.
you're going to stay true to whatever you know, because ultimately your why is stronger than anybody else's words of discouragement towards you,
Yeah. And that goes into one of the upcoming parts of the series is believing in yourself, which is basically exactly what you just said, is that you have to believe in yourself so much that you don't let any doubt come in from the outside world. And you have to be just all in on whatever your dream is, which is, falls back onto your why as well. Because the moment that you start letting doubt enter from the people around you, or even if you start developing self-doubt, you're never going to get up the next morning at 5 a.m. to go do the workout to train for the marathon that you're doing, or whatever it is. You're never going to get up and work on the PowerPoint presentation, put an extra half an hour in before you kind of finalize it before work. So you have to have just a full amount, 100% blinders on belief in what you're doing, or else you're not going to get it done.
Yeah.
But this was a great first part to the series. Not to cut you off, Andrew, of course, if you have anything else to say, you can, but this iron mindset is so important, and we're hoping that we can help you kind of shape it and build your own and be just a disciplined BA, man. And just want to say thank you again from the bottom of my heart for listening. And we hope that you find and you gain something from all this, that it's not just for nothing. But again, you can follow us on Instagram, on Discord at One and Done Nation. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Give it a listen, give it a watch. Just thank you guys so much. That's all I got.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Like I said before the pod, follow us on everything. We need to be posting more. It's tough. I removed myself from social media, which is the main thing that we post on. So we will be posting more clips. We're going to be posting more on Instagram. Keep an eye out. We're still posting videos on YouTube, like Jonah said. And be on the lookout for the upcoming episodes. They're going to be awesome as part of this Iron Mind series. Jonah, I'm not going to take credit for that. That was 100% your name, written all over that series name. So that's a sick name. But I think it's a great introduction. This episode was awesome. And let us know what y'all think of it. Hit us up. I had a couple people talk about last episode and how much it helped them. So that's kind of our why with this as well, is we want to help people, so keep it up, people. I know it's hard, but we'll see you on the next pod. We're out.
Peace.